In my opinion, building a business on brand is much more important than building a business purely on the ROI. You don't want to waste money. You need to think of yourself not as a real estate agent, but a media company who sells real estate. Yes, I'm a real estate agent, but I'm a media company first. I present all of my real estate stuff via video onto social for my sphere to follow. And then the real estate stuff comes from that. You want to attract, don't chase, right? You want to attract your business. You want the phone ringing. You don't want to be outbound calling.
I feel like you are a genius marketer in sales on like what actually performs.
Thanks. Content creation isn't always literally to get someone to sign on the line. It's to stay relevant and stay top of mind so that when they're ready, they think of you and don't go to Zillow or Google. I don't just send postcards. I send postcards with custom URLs that drop to a video, which is me giving a market update for that. And then they can drop their home valuation in there. And once I get the home valuation, I go drop off a listing package and a CMA about what I think their home is worth.
Kind of like you said, you do all that traditional stuff, the postcard campaigns, the emails, the texts that gotten you like $3 to $4 million listings. What are the things where you are investing your time in?
Should have done this 10 years ago, but I'm not going to wait any more time because
I feel like you are a genius marketer in sales on like what actually performs.
Jeez, thanks. I'm going to get you to follow me around and just do my intros. I appreciate that.
So, but you have a quote that I think the ones who win are the ones who recognize something when something is going on or what's actually happening, and the people who are quickest to move into that. Mm-hmm. So could you talk about that?
We're in such a reactive business and there's, trending changes. It's, whether it be moving from Facebook to Instagram or Instagram to YouTube, stuff like that. We're always changing, right? Yeah. So I think that the people who can identify and pivot the quickest win because it's, you get the early adopter advantage of getting on a new platform first and building up a following, or you just show that you're staying ahead of the game, whether it be switching from geographic farming to Zillow and then back. As long as you're staying in touch with the trends and what's winning and you're the first person to move there and you learn about it and you get in there first, I think you have an advantage. People who are quick to move and learn new things will always have an advantage.
Something that I saw that you're doing recently is, well, two things. One, you have a whole new Instagram called In San Diego TV that you're building up completely separate from the Jason Cassity.
Correct.
But then the other thing, which I think both work in tandem, is you started in YouTube back in 2016, mm-hmm. and you had so many different series, and you actually said if you were restarting over right now, mm-hmm. you would go more local YouTube.
Totally.
So can you talk about those?
Absolutely, yeah. So you mentioned In San Diego, which is just funny because that's my project right now that I'm working on. It's shout out to Ken Pozek, Orlando, Florida. He's like the guy who, in my opinion, is doing it the right way. And he's basically spent the last 5 or 10 years developing a local brand. He is Orlando. He actually has the page Orlando Reel, where he actually does like news stories for Orlando. Now he gets asked to go to Disney and break news stories and stuff like that. And that has translated into business for his business, right? So he has all these people who follow him for Orlando content, and then they end up needing a realtor and he's there. And obviously then the Pozek group comes and steps in. Me personally have over the last 5 or 10 years built a brand in the real estate space, but it's very real estate first, right? It's like, hey, I'm a thought leader. I talk about, the new car changes, NAR changes, stuff like that, which is fine. Mm-hmm. It helps with referrals and notoriety. But if I could do it all over again, I would 100% start like Ken Pozek. I would start a local YouTube channel. And then, of course, an Instagram channel to go off the YouTube channel, whatever, for short form. Only talking about San Diego. I would never talk about agent-facing stuff. And that's exactly what I'm doing with In San Diego. And it is strictly talking about the new pandas coming back to the zoo, or it's talking about we got the Clippers G League team coming to San Diego. And so news stories. The next iteration of this will be breaking down the 3 most expensive zip codes in San Diego, the 5 zip codes you want to move to, right? So it'll be a real estate tie-in, but still San Diego related, nothing to do with me, my clients, the greater real estate industry as a whole. All of that will stay on my Jason Cassity stuff. If it's real estate related or agent facing-esque related or client or property listing videos, all of that stays on Jason Cassity. And I'm working now to build up In San Diego, which is the local pages.
So first, why now? Was there?
Why not? I don't have any more time. I have a team, right? I'm a team leader here in San Diego. I'm still in production, so I still sell houses and have listings. Best time to plant a tree was 20 years ago. Second best time's today. You know what I mean? It's I should have done this 10 years ago, but I'm not going to wait any more time because this is, in my opinion, the best way to build a business. So I'm still going to be in business 5 years from now, 7 years from now. 5 years from now, I want to be there. I need to start now.
So when you look at the strategy that you're going to be doing on both of those, what does that kind of look like? How are you going to execute that?
It's more so just recapping news stories and then tying the real estate in, like I said, breaking down things that people would be searching for San Diego. So like, obviously you can go into other YouTube channels and see what they're posting. You can go to TubeBuddy or things like that help you get titles. But I want to identify what the people are searching for and then have content that matches that, right? And so like what I'm going to try to do is 1 to 2 videos a week on the YouTube. And then each video on the YouTube can be clipped up into shorter form for YouTube Shorts and Instagram. Shout out to Connor Renee. He shoots my videos for me. We sit down and we batch content. We'll shoot 6 to 8 to 10 videos at one time. And then he'll give me a Google Drive folder with the videos, with the thumbnails, and then the short form versions of those videos. And he does the captions and the overlays, stuff like that. And then so I'll just be able to post, write the description, and then engage with the community as it grows. It's easy. And if you get in with a good videographer and just batch, super easy. It's just a little time consuming, but whatever.
I feel like for someone who's done social media for a decade and execute at a high level, spoke on many different stages about it, for you to be like, this is the strategy that I'm going all in on, it says a lot. What a lot of people are always curious about is like, what do I talk about? Like, how do you think through like the ideation, and do you just go into the shoot with just like, okay, I'm just going to talk about this today?
Yeah, kind of. I'm meeting with my videographer on Tuesday at 5:00 p.m. and we're going to shoot for 2 hours or whatever. I just made that time up. But so on Monday, because usually I set my calendar for the week, so at least the day before, maybe the morning of, but usually the day before, I'll make an outline of what I want us to talk about, and it might be 6 videos, 8 videos, whatever. And so if it's a news story that I'm breaking about the water in San Diego being extra dirty this year because the Tijuana River flowed up, you know what I mean? So I'll go to like the NBC7 news story and kind of read up on it really quick just to make sure I'm knowledgeable on it. And then I can put some notes on the outline and then go to the next video. I do know what I'm talking about when I come into it.
Yeah.
He comes, we set up, I bring a change of clothes. So I'll shoot one video, then I'll change, then I'll change, and I'll change, so that they're always a little bit different. And then literally I'll sit and I'll just go straight, depending on what we decide to do. I'm either going to go straight one to camera, or I'm going to go just off camera, you know, depending on the style of, sometimes if I'm like telling a story, I go just off camera. It gives a little bit of Glenda Baker-esque kind of like that type of thing where you're talking to someone off camera. I'm not very good at reading scripts, because if I have a script, when I mess up, inevitably it freezes me up, because I was like, I know I messed up.
Yeah.
But if I have an outline, then I can't mess up. I may stumble over a word, but I can just like restart the sentence or something, you know. So then I just go and I shoot a couple videos, and then I let Connor, the videographer, edit it up, and then come back. So on the new one, which is hyperlocal, I'm literally just trying to share local stories that people might find interesting, and then mix in 1 or 2 things that I see other successful people have done, or people are searching. So you can use, like, again, TubeBuddy, or you can kind of do some research as to what people are searching for the most. It's like moving to San Diego, pros and cons list, or the 3 neighborhoods that you want to move to in San Diego, or the best schools in San Diego. So you can like literally just do listicles of the best whatever in your city. And that's a plethora of content. That's probably 50, 70, 100 videos right there if you just do different topics, pros and cons, things I wish I knew but when I moved to San Diego. You can come up with so many different titles of YouTube videos, and then you just go make your little outline, batch your content, shoot it, and let the videographer go from there.
I think it's smart what you're doing, and it kind of piggyback off of Ken's, like, the whole development side.
Yeah.
Talking about the local news. It doesn't just tap into buyers, it taps into like local.
For 10 years, I did why Compass and Remax were merging. It was like industry macro stuff, and it's fine. It got followers, but then by the end of my 10 years, most of my followers on Instagram are agents, and it's like that. It had benefits. I mean, I got referrals and notoriety, but it wasn't the business that I wanted from like San Diego home sellers and buyers. And so ultimately now I just thinking as a San Diego home buyer and seller, what type of content would I want to see? And that's what I create it for.
I'm sure you probably hear this all the time because you interact with so many agents. They may say, well, I just want to make content for sellers. I want to get listings.
Yeah.
And then if I'm just talking about the local development in downtown, how's that going to get me a listing?
If anything, it's like when you go on listing appointments and you're knowledgeable about your area, that's one of the things that sellers want to know is this person knowledgeable, right? So that the more knowledgeable you are, the easier it is to have conversations with your sellers when you're sitting at the coffee table. You're right. Like maybe if you know that there's a Trader Joe's going in on 5th and Market, your seller might not care because they're selling, they're leaving anyways. But the fact that you're plugged in and you know what's going on Fifth and Market and maybe how that could impact the pricing of your home soon, that's helpful. You know what I mean? Like, but yeah, that content might be more broad, but you can't only put out seller content too, because what about the buyers and what about the people who aren't selling yet but might sell 5 years from now? They might not care about the interest rates and selling like scenarios now because they're not selling for 5 years, but they might care. They live in the neighborhood, so they might care about the trade. You know what I mean? It just gives you content to stay in front of that person so that when they're ready, they call you. People only transact every 8 or 9 years now. So that means when they buy, you now have 8.5 years of content you have to give them that's not like what to do to sell your home right now because they don't care. Yeah. But they do care about the new stuff that's going on in their neighborhood for sure.
In order to like reach the right people, especially on like YouTube, Instagram, like you have your new audience, you have like your casual and then like your core. Mm-hmm. And most people want to like dive into that core. Yeah. Be like, I just want to make content for people who are buying or selling. Yeah. But the trick is like, you just have to get them to like know and like you to even earn that chance to be their agent.
Correct. And again, if they're transacting every 8 years, for 7.5 years, you need to stay in front of them and relevant and make sure they stay liking you. Because if you stop marketing to them, they'll forget you. You know, I think the stat with NAR is like 87% of people say they would work with their agent, but only 17% do. Mm-hmm. My guess is it's because the agents forget to market to those people as if they're their clients. Sharon Srivatsa, our president here at Real, has a saying that's like, you should never call someone your past client. Those people are always your clients for life. Lawyers don't say my past client. Doctors don't say my past client. So like if someone buys a house with you, they're your client for life. They're not your past client. But like we just talked about, you can't send them interest rate information and market updates for selling if they're 7 years away from selling. But if you send them relevant information about their neighborhood, that's something that they like. And so you're staying relevant to them and they're still liking you because you're sending good content to them.
When you do get that appointment, you're able to say, well, this area is moving up or this area is growing because of X, Y, and Z. Totally. Like you're in tune with what's going on.
Yeah, for sure. I think it's really helpful. Like whether or not it is the specific thing that wins you the listing, maybe, I don't know, who cares? Maybe they don't know, maybe they don't care about that development. But the fact that you're plugged in, you know what's going on in the neighborhoods, that can't be a bad thing. Content creation isn't always literally to get someone to sign on the line. It's to stay knowing and liking, just to stay relevant and stay top of mind so that when they're ready, they think of you and don't go to Zillow or Google or something like that.
I think a big thing that you talked about is like you prep, and that practice is like the practice showing up before the game. Sure. And that plays a big role in you just coming across confident on camera too.
I'm going to go shoot video that's going to go on YouTube or Instagram. I need to know what the hell I'm talking about in a sense, you know what I mean? And if I know what I'm talking about, I'm comfortable and I don't feel like I need to have a script because I can talk to you right now about the NAR changes very comfortably because I've been practicing it for 4 months. But if you asked me about like 19th century French literature, something I have no idea, I would stumble over my words. I wouldn't know what I was talking about. You know what I mean? So like now if you're talking about your neighborhood and you live in the neighborhood, it's really easy to sit on video and be like, hey, why I love Kensington. It's like, it's close to the Trader Joe's. My kids go to school here. If you go the back way, you can actually cut 2 minutes off your commute. You could talk about that really easily because you live in there. But if you asked me to talk about Tampa, I have no idea, right? Because I've never lived there and I haven't prepped for it. Some of that video would suck. So sitting down, having an outline of what you want to shoot, don't script out every word. It just working on video for 10 years, it doesn't sound as good when you're reading a script. Everything you should do, even on camera, should sound like a conversation. So actually, if you're shooting with a single cam, so say you're shooting this at home, just with your cam set up on a tripod, I would always pretend like there was someone on the other side of the camera asking me the question, and then I'm answering the question back to them. You know what I mean? So if they said, what do you love about Kensington? I'd be like, what I love most about Kensington is this. I would be having a conversation with that imaginary person behind the camera. Whereas if I was like, what I love most about Kensington is, that doesn't sound as good. You know what I mean? So like, that's how I kind of get around when I'm either with a videographer or shooting by myself, is I always pretend like I'm having a conversation with an invisible person on the other side of the camera.
Yeah. I think that's the important thing, is like coming across natural, because in the world of AI, everyone's going to be saying the same thing. Yeah. So if you're just regurgitating that, correct, versus something, being the local expert, you're going to come across a completely different way.
Agreed. Yep.
You said something earlier that I think is another important thing, is like you're going in on YouTube and Instagram and you're just like, we'll see what happens, instead of, I hope I get a lead tomorrow.
No, it doesn't work like that. Yeah, nothing in this business works like that. You know what I mean? Like as a team leader, right, we have a Zillow spend, we do Google pay-per-click, we have a geographic farm. Those type of metrics are easy to kind of track, where it's like, hey, if I spend $1, I'll get a 3x ROI, I'll get 3 back. And so if I want to get more, I can just spend more. But if you're trying to build a brand and a name for yourself and like a repeat and referral based business, then sometimes what you're doing doesn't have a direct ROI, right? And so like speaking on a stage or something like that, there's no direct ROI. No one's, very rarely is someone going to come up to you and want to buy or sell a house from that speaking thing. But the social that you post about you speaking on stage, and then someone in your network's like, oh, this guy must be doing something right because he's speaking on the stage. And then 3 years later, they call you because they know you're doing something right. That's it's like you can't just ROI everything when you're building brand. And when you're talking about YouTube growth and Instagram growth, my opinion is you're doing it to build brand, not to get a quick ROI right out of the gate.
I know you think about marketing as a whole.
Sure.
It's not just like one channel.
Totally.
I saw something lately that Nike actually, for the first time in many years, they switched. They're like, oh, we're going to do performance marketing. And they end up going down this path. And what they realize is switching away from brand marketing to performance, they lost a huge market share.
Yeah.
Because they were trying to do something measurable.
Yeah.
They were trying to be like, okay, we want to spend $1, get $3 out. One of their like chief people said, yeah, that's what happens when you go down too far.
Correct.
That performance path.
To me, the way you want to build a business, and I could be wrong. I mean, I'm sure there's plenty of people out there who built successful businesses doing ROI-based things only. But I'm very much like you want to attract, don't chase, right? You want to attract your business. You want the phone ringing. You don't want to be outbound calling. Again, there's so many people. When I worked at Compass, there was this team in the office next to me. Shout out to Richard Elias and Tony Elias and their team. And they did cold calls and for sale by owners. They were in the office at like 7 a.m. every day, bouncing on their trampoline with their Mike Ferry scripts, and they crushed. Fingernails on a chalkboard to me. Like, I can't imagine building my business that way. All of my business is attraction-based business. So I'm trying to put out content so that when someone's ready to buy, they think of me before going somewhere else. And I just feel like that is a better foundational way of building a business. You're not hard selling someone. You're not competing with other people, because if those people watch you on YouTube for 3 years and then they decide to call you, they've watched hundreds of hours of you. They've researched you, and they're calling you to hire you. They're not calling you to compete for the business. It's a much easier way to have the relationship. Now, that takes longer. You have to put out a lot of videos without any type of feedback and ROI, but when you're sitting at the coffee table and you're like, hey, how did you find out about me? And they're like, oh, we've got your flyers, which took us to your YouTube page, and we've watched all your videos. We see you everywhere. You're like, oh, it's working. Like, you just don't always feel it the same way. In my opinion, building a business on brand is much more important than building a business purely on the ROI. You don't want to waste money, so I'm not saying that, but like sometimes you're just doing something based on what feels right and you think is the right thing to do because you know you're building brand with it. And if you do that in the long term, eventually you'll win.
I realized, like, looking at myself, because I like the attract, don't chase model as well, that like my first job out of high school was sales, 18 years old, referral based business. And we had to phone call. Like, there was really no other way. Yeah. And I kind of like pushed myself. I still kind of do both, but like I pushed myself to the other side because I was like, I don't want to do that anymore. Yeah. Did you ever have something like that?
There's marketing and then there's sales, right? And sometimes those are two different divisions, but as real estate agents who are solopreneurs, a lot of times you're wearing both hats.
Yep.
And so like a lot of the stuff you do for marketing gets the people in the door, but if you don't know how to sell, you're wasting all this money. You have big holes in your funnel, right? And if you're a great salesman, but no one knows who you are, then you never have the at-bats to do it. So you need to marry both. All the marketing in the world is great, but if you don't know how to pick up the phone, schedule an appointment, it's like there's still like dirt-related stuff you need to know how to do, especially in this kind of like ever-changing environment of car forms, NAR forms, all this stuff. But at the same time, there are 78 different ways to make money in this business, and like pick 3 or 5 that you really enjoy doing. For me, the outbound video marketing stuff is fun. I enjoy doing it. So I'm going to spend most of my time and effort there versus cold calling, door knocking, doing the stuff that maybe shorter term has better ROI, but I would hate it. I would never make it. I would have never made it through my first 2 years in the business had I joined that team that did all the cold calling next door to me. You know what I mean? I would have gotten out of real estate and gotten into some corporate job because I would have hated the job. So you have to take a little cost analysis there. Is like, do you like what you're doing every single day? And if you like what you're doing, put more time, effort, and energy into that.
Kind of like you said, you do all that traditional stuff, like the postcard campaigns, the emails, the texts that gotten you like $3 to $4 million listings. Sure. Like when you think about, okay, the next 90 days to 6 to 12 months, you're going to be tough. You're going to have to do a little bit more. Yeah. Like, what are the things where you are investing your time in?
Building a brand on Instagram and social media, YouTube. You don't know when the next deal's coming in, right? And so like, I believe it's the right way to build a business. But like, if you're just repeat and referral, which is what everybody in real estate wants to get to, say you have, 500 people in your database, you can assume that 5 to 10% are going to turn over. So that's 25 to 50 deals every year just from your database. So that's great. The problem is you don't know when those people are going to buy or sell. You can't just turn a lever and get more business.
Yep.
I would say like right now, especially in this week's, I don't know when you're listening to this, but this is the first week of August. Our interest rates dropped from 7.1 to 6.4 last week. If you haven't one-on-one every single person in your database, you know what I mean? And with some sort of an update, whether that be a video message update, what we like to do is like, hey, I just wanted to keep you abreast as one of my private clients. Make sure you saw that interest rates dropped from 7.1 to 6.4. That's like a $400 drop on an $800,000 mortgage. Do you want me to let you know when it drops below 6? So I did a video message to a blast email to my database. Had like 19 responses back. So of course I then kind of facilitated conversations with those people. Now I have a database though. So like if you don't have a database, I'm probably putting out that type of content right away to make sure everybody knows. If you're brand new, I'm probably like hosting open houses as much as possible just so you can get in front of other people, potentially getting onto a team that has some sort of online lead generation coming in. But for me, capitalizing on something like a rate drop and then the changes for here in California Association of Realtor changes, I've also now basically one-on-one with everybody in my database my database is 350 people, and just said, hey, shot a video, text, or message, and just said, hey, just want to make sure you're abreast of the changes to the listing agreement. Shot a quick little video, and then said, if you have any questions, let me know, right? I'm in the trenches now doing the one-on-one battles with everybody in my database right now, just making sure I'm staying top of mind. Ultimately, you want to build your own business.
Yep.
So you're not reliant on online leads, but if you're earlier in your career, you don't have any past clients yet, so like get onto a team that has some sort of lead flow, but that's important too.
You can do that like mortgage alert stuff, and the NAR stuff and the CAR stuff to like your sphere too.
Totally, yeah, for sure, yeah. If you're really fresh in this, like literally, I would just go to your phone, start at A on your contacts, and like it helps. I like to do it every year or so and just clean them up because I had so many like Kika Court appraiser or Keith, what I did? I just clean them out. But then as you're going, you're gonna be like, oh shoot, Andrew, I talked to him like 6 months ago. He was thinking about buying, but just literally start at A and go and clean up and just decide who do I need to be talking to today. Even if it's just about their kids or baseball or something. It doesn't have to be about real estate, but you should be having as many conversations as possible right now.
That's the thing that I always like looked at you and admired is like you'll see an idea like the mortgage alert or like the We Have a Buyer video that I know everyone kind of like looks at you for.
Totally.
When you kind of look at all these different campaigns, are there any that you're like, okay, these work and these are the ones that like right time, right moment, like the right buyer?
You need to be doing them all. So if you're sending out farm pieces to 1,000 homes neighborhood, you know what I mean? It's like, it's almost impossible to come back and say, well, it was this piece that did well, so I'm just going to send this piece more. But sometimes it's just you have out of 1,000 homes, maybe you have a couple people that are just ready to sell in that month, but they've been getting your stuff for months, right? And so it's just that piece. It's just because they're ready at that time. It's not because that piece worked better.
Yeah.
So it's kind of tough to do that type of stuff. You just need to have a geographic farm, in my opinion. And you need to have some sort of online lead flow coming in, and then you need to have some sort of social presence. When I say social presence, you don't have to do video, but it's 2024. Like you kind of need to lead with video. So if you're doing those three things well, you're starting to cultivate brand recognition, and people will think of you when they're ready. I think there's a lot more luck and timing to that than people give credit for. Like this business kind of has this to it. You know what I mean? You might close 5 deals and then close nothing for a month, and then close 3 deals and then close nothing for 2 months. It's not like you're doing. And so at the end of the year, I always say at the end of the year, you look and you did 25 deals or whatever that number is. And it's like, all right, that's 2 deals a month. That's 25 deals. But I talked to 2,500 people. That means 2,475 people didn't do anything this year, right? Problem is that the January 1st, when you set your goal of 25 people, you don't know which 25 they are. So you have to talk to all 2,500 people at all times to sift through and find those 25.
I could look at you and be like, you're very big on digital. It's like, why would you go traditional? Why would you farm? At least from what I've seen externally, like even had a farm like in downtown. It's probably moved now.
Yeah, so I moved in 2021. I bought a house in La Mesa, which is about 15 minutes east of downtown. And then my office is in Mission Valley, and so our farm is in this neighborhood called Savita, which is up by my office in Mission Valley with my neighborhood of 150 homes in La Mesa. And then I do still have a couple buildings downtown that I've just had a lot of sales in. So like I stay in touch with those buildings. But for the most part, it's moved outside of downtown now. Although I still do business downtown, but it's since I moved, the farm moved a little bit too.
So some people would be like, well, I want to work everywhere, or like the farming's expensive.
Yeah.
Like, what have you found kind of doing that and having that like niche?
Yeah. I mean, you need to, when you're picking a farm, right? Like obviously we're here in San Diego, I could say Coronado's my farm, right? It's right over there across the bay, and it's every home over there is $2 million. The problem is I've never sold a home on Coronado. I don't live there. I don't have any in over in Coronado. Everybody there is older demographically, so they've all had the same agent for 20 years. You know what I mean? So like that's a tough market to break into, if I'm going to be honest. Ideally, you're going to want to pick something that you know, so that you're knowledgeable when you're sitting in front of the seller and you know what you're talking about. So usually people pick farms near where they live because it's easy, convenient, something that you know, and then something with enough turnover. So like, you know, I think Tom Ferry says between 5 and 10% turnover, so you can just pull the whole farm, and if there's been 5 or 10% turnover, that's a good indicator that people are moving enough to where you can get the at-bats. And then somewhere where you would want to work too. That's the other thing, is like, do you like the homes in there? Can you see yourself holding open houses all the time and working, throwing community events in that community? Then you'll identify something that you really want to make your own. But yeah, and then once you're in there, you're right, you marry everything together. So I don't just send postcards. I send postcards with custom URLs that drop to a video, which is me giving a market update for that, and then they can drop their home valuation in there. And once I get the home valuation, I go drop off a listing package and a CMA about what I think their home is worth. Like market update videos, the video that's on the landing page, I do as a YouTube pre-roll ad to the area. I want to sit down at the coffee table and then say, I see you everywhere. It's not just the postcard. It's the postcard with the landing page. If you're really, really plugged in, you do community events in there and throw, you know, a day at the park for the kids, and you have a bounce house and taco guy. You know what I mean? So you're starting to like really ingrain yourself in that farm.
So how do you deal with like the costs and then volume of the message? Like, okay, I at least want to make sure I'm spending a good amount, but can't go too far into the red.
I mean, it's based on probably your GCI at that point. Like, I'm probably more aggressive than most. I say you should be spending about 20% of your GCI back into marketing. You did $100,000 in GCI, you're spending $20,000 in marketing. It's like, that's just under $2,000 a month. And it's like, all right, so if that's not even enough to buy Zillow leads, like in a zip. So if you're only making $100,000 a year, putting $20,000 in, you're probably not ready to buy Zillow leads yet, because it's not going to be like that. You don't get enough. But you can maybe do Google pay-per-click, you know, all right, so I'm going to put 500 into Google pay-per-click. I'm going to do 1,000-person farm. It's about $1 a piece. You know, give or take. I'm just throwing out numbers. So now I'm at 1,500, but then I need to, and I also want to, you know, throw a small client event. So now that's 2,000 a month right there. So that's kind of, your budget will dictate what you can do, and then as you grow, your budget grows.
When did you move to the area that you live?
2021.
So you had to like build up brand new in that area.
Yeah, I haven't even sold a house in that area yet. I just started farming last. I moved out there. It was middle of COVID, or like, you know, it was early 2021. Like now I like my neighborhood, and I'm a kid goes to school there. So I'm like, oh, I want to be here for a while. Maybe I should start to farm it. You know what I mean? And so like it kind of like organically happened that way. But like the Savita neighborhood, yeah, when I was working there, it kind of came because I had a seller in there, and then I held an open house and got another seller. And so then by the end of like a couple months, I had 2 sellers and a buyer or something, and I'm like, maybe I should start farming here. I have enough like social proof in the area, because that's the other thing, is like when you sit down at the coffee table and they say, how many homes have you sold in here? If the answer is 0, like maybe you know what I mean? But if you're like, oh yeah, actually just sold 123 and 125 like last month, like that's really good, a good position to be in. So sometimes your farm is determined for you.
You mentioned something like the QR code to the market video.
Yep.
Like, is that something that you like to do, or you found that works?
Yeah, totally. Yeah. And then you can kind of track it too, depending if you have analytics on your website. But it's like, if you have a custom URL, you can easily say how many people visited that custom URL this month. And it's like, well, that URL is only on the postcard, so it must have come from the postcard. And you could say, okay, I sent out 1,000, I had 32 visits to the landing page. And if you're hosting an unlisted video on YouTube, you could also see the view count. And so you're like, okay, I had 17 people watch the video. So it's like, all right, I'm getting some decent viewage on this. There's 1,000 people on the farm, there's 32 people, and then there's 17 that watch the video, and maybe 2 leave their address, but you don't know which 17 they are, so you have to mail all 1,000. You have to continue mailing all 1,000. And ultimately it's just like, people are going to drop their address, but maybe they're just curious, maybe they're not going to sell. That's why it doesn't always happen right away.
It's a market update video about a very specific neighborhood.
Yeah,
it's not just San Diego market.
No, it's specific to that, whatever your farm is.
You're sending people to a landing page, so it's not the unlisted video. And on that landing page, there's a form or something?
Yeah, so I use Curator's website, and so there's a seller page which someone can just drop their address in, and it creates a little input into your CRM that says, "Hey, Andrew Van at 123 Banana Street just left their home valuation, or they requested a home valuation." And so what I would do is send a postcard to 1,000 people that says, "Hey, for a custom market valuation of Savita specifically, visit soldinsavita.com," or whatever my custom URL is. They go to that website. Front and center is a video. They click play, and it's like, "Hey, Savita homeowner, what's up? My name's Jason. Thanks for clicking our market update video for July," or whatever. "I'm here on my MLS. It looks like your zip code's gone up 7% in the last year. That's awesome. You might be sitting on some great equity. This sale at 123 Banana Street was actually really impressive. It brought the price point up to 950 square foot or dollars per square foot. Good for you guys. If you're thinking about getting a custom valuation on your home, enter your address below, and I'll send an email to you. Or if you just want to stay up to date on the information, just bookmark this page, and we'll update monthly." It's just a quick 2-minute video about the neighborhood specifically that they can go to, get some information specifically about the neighborhood, and then they can leave their valuation or their home if they want a custom valuation.
I think that is very easy to gloss over because it's a traditional marketing thing.
Correct.
It's not like traditional for digital. Like everyone wants to do like the Tampa housing market, or like et cetera. But when you go very specific, it's a very relevant message.
Correct.
And it's more likely to convert.
Correct, for sure. Exactly, because you're the knowledgeable guy about my neighborhood. You know what I mean? As the seller, you're like, "Oh, this guy knows my neighborhood. He knows this exact zip code." And they're assuming that it's probably just for their neighborhood, and then they're getting a custom neighborhood evaluation. They're more likely to call you when they're ready. It doesn't mean you don't work all of San Diego, but your marketing piece, is supposed to be tailored to the person.
Are there any other, like, I know I mentioned like the I have a buyer video and postcard that you've done. Any other things that in the next like 6 months you're like, okay, these are some messages that I might send out?
We as agents are conditioned to take listings and then try to sell the home. Thing is a lot of us have buyers as well that in a low inventory environment would write an offer if the right home came along. So let's use those buyers like they were listings. So let's market those buyers. So what I decided to do is send out, so if you know you have a buyer looking for Savita, you can send mailers to all of Savita. That's like a letter that's like, "Hey, Savita homeowner," or "Hey, if you can do the field of the first name." So it'd say, "Hey, Andrew," that's even better. "I have a buyer. Their name is Mike and Christine. They're looking for a 3-bed, 2-bath in Savita specifically. We saw one. It wasn't the right orientation of the backyard, so we're still on the hunt. If you've been thinking about selling or know someone who is, please reach out to me. They're very well qualified, pre-approved buyers. Let me know." That's not anything new. People have been doing "I have a buyer" letters as long as I've been in the business, but I think that they do it as like a marketing ploy where it's like, "I have buyers for your neighborhood." My letter is like, "Hey, Andrew, I have buyers. Their name is Mike and Christine. They looked at 123 Banana Street, but it didn't work out. So I'm sending this to you because I know you're a 3-bed, 2-bath homeowner. Please help me help them out. Like if you're thinking about selling or know someone who is, let us know." So I've taken my buyer, which could be construed as a liability because we don't have anything to sell them, and I've turned it into an opportunity to uncover off-market stuff for them. Not only does it potentially uncover off-market stuff, which is the point, your buyer sees you doing stuff for them. So they're like, "Oh, this guy's working for me. He's not just waiting for the home to pop up." Other sellers in the neighborhood are like, "This guy's hard a worker. He's not just waiting for," you know what I mean? So it's so much intangible. But ultimately it's worked in the past to actually find the house for the buyer too, which is the point. What you're talking about, the video, I just took that old school tactic of sending the mailers and made a video of it. And I shot a video that's like, "If you're seeing this, it's on purpose. It's because I have a buyer. Their name is Mike and Christine. They're looking for a 3-bed, 2-bath home in your neighborhood. We've seen everything on the MLS. If you're thinking about selling, let me know." And then I ran that as an ad to the neighborhood. So then it's like, if they were seeing it, it is on purpose. It's because I have a buyer for that neighborhood. And so it was like kind of a funny ploy. Like it worked though. It's like what usually happens when I do those is like other agents see it. And then they're like, "Hey, I saw your ad. I have a listing coming up." And it's like, great, it worked. It's just, there's so many intangible perks for doing that. Just taking your buyers and turning them into opportunities versus being liabilities in a sense if there's nothing for them.
I was curious, like when you think of everything and you think of in the next 3 years, you want to build something, I feel like there's things that you're like, okay, these are the things that we're going to do. And one, the YouTube, Instagram, there's probably some other traditional stuff as well. Where are you kind of looking and where's your head at?
From the team leader hat that I wear, like I'm focused on the ROI of now business. So I think that Zillow is still going to be the predominant input of now buyer leads. If I give someone $1, they give me 3 back. That's, as a business owner, you're going to continue doing that.
Smart money, yeah.
Smart money, yeah. And so like I'm actually trying to gear my team up to get a Flex account, even though the ROI is better on market-based pricing. I believe San Diego is going to be moving to Flex only at some point, and I don't want to miss that boat. But the whole point of having a Flex account is not for the now business. It's to get those people into your database to then get referrals, repeat business 7 years later, all that type of stuff, right? So if I continue to pay for Google pay-per-click and Zillow leads for my team to grow our now business, as well as, you know, obviously we have listings that will open house and will farm, you know, a geographic farm. All of that is construed as like maybe like more traditional marketing. And then I'll continue building my brand as an agent-facing thought leader brand, which helps with agent-to-agent referrals, and then build the hyperlocal pillar, which potentially, if I can do that the right way and I copy some people that I really look up to, then potentially that could then be a lead flow. Potentially maybe wean off of the paid Zillow and Google pay-per-click and just rely on the YouTube channel and the leads that come in from that too.
It's smart. You have like the pay-per-click and the Zillow for now, and then you have the brand that you're building for tomorrow, the YouTube, Instagram, etc. Like you mentioned some things like scripts, systems, accountability, having all the processes. Were you always like that with your team?
No, I'm not. This is the last 2 years thing. When I was heavy in production, doing 25, 30 deals myself, you know what I mean? Like that before I like just myself. I was like very fly by the seat of my pants. Like I was handling my own business, but I was not systematized as much as I have been the last couple of years since I've grown my team. And not just since I've grown my team, but since I've like really put time and love and effort into growing my team. And now we have SOPs for everything. So I just sat down over the course of the last year or so and just made standard operating procedures for what happens when a new buyer lead comes in. It's like, all right, you have the initial call, you put them into Real Scout, you put them into Lofty, you send a follow-up email. Here's the template for the follow-up email. It's literally like a 14-step process. And so that if I was not here, you came to my team meeting and you took a new buyer lead, you could put a new buyer lead in. All on Google Docs, like systemized processes. We have everything dialed out to the point where I don't need to be there. Or I can bring in someone to run the team out from a director of ops. We have our CRM, we have our website curator partner, you know, our Google pay-per-click partner. We have our Real Scout, which is our property search and home valuation product. So we have systems and tech built in to every part of the process, but that's just been over the past couple of years. So like I've really taken a better approach to make sure that I'm providing for my team, because at a certain point it's like, well, like, what are you providing for? It isn't just leads, or are you providing leads and systems, lead systems and accountability? And so I'm trying to be the best team leader that I can, which includes, in my opinion, having this type of stuff like dialed in.
And I think that's important because it's like when you're bringing people into the team, it's like, here's what you're getting. And you can very tangibly, the same way everyone's going to have a conversation about that 5-6%. It's like, what am I getting for that?
I always tell my team, just like I evaluate my brokerage partnership, and I'm like, am I getting the right value for what I'm paying? You should be evaluating me. And then like this team is like, am I getting the right value for what I'm paying? If you're paying, because to be on a team, you're paying an overlay. Like, so you have your split to your brokerage and you have probably an overlay to a team leader. And so if you're giving up money in this business, are you getting value back? You know what I mean? Same thing I do as a business owner with my Zillow leads and my Google pay-per-click and my farm. You should be doing the same thing with your team leader. And I tell my team, like, you should be doing that with me. And the second that you feel like the value is not there for the price that you're paying, we got to talk. So ultimately, yeah, as a team leader, I'm always kind of thinking about, am I providing enough value? And sometimes it leads to like, you got to pour from a full pitcher, like that whole thing. It's like, man, am I just giving away too much? You know what I mean? I always go back and forth. It's like, should I just go back to myself and just just cut it all out and just go by myself? You know, go back to do 30 deals a year by myself and maybe hire an admin or something. Or it's like, no, I want to do 100 deals. I want to do, you know what I mean? It's like, I want to grow in the right steps. And so I'm going to continue doing it.
Was that hard being a fly by the seat person to be like, okay, I'm going to take a moment and be like, let me build out this system. Like, was it kind of like nail on chalkboard?
Yeah, a little bit. Like, I always knew that I needed to get better about tying up the loose ends, you know what I mean? And it was maybe realizing that like I wasn't going to get a Zillow Flex account at some point if I didn't have my shit together. And so I was like, man, if I really got to put my best foot forward and like audition for this type thing, I need to make sure I have my systems and processes in place. Like now it's like, I'm a team leader and I want to get to this next level. I got to do what it takes to get to the next level.
When you first started the team, as you said, you had like a team of pitchers.
Yeah.
Instead of having like a full roster of a team.
Yeah.
Can you talk about that transition?
Yeah, the quote you're talking about is like a team is a first base, second base, third base, left field, center field, right field, and each specialist doing their job to support the team. I feel like what I built was I'm a pitcher and I built a bunch of pitchers underneath me. And so like now I'm just kind of more like a pitching coach. You know what I mean? It's not the way to build a team. The problem is like I don't have the third baseman now or the center fielder, the specialist. I built more like a team ridge, like its own individual brokerage underneath pretending to be a team. But, the team even like keeps all their numbers in their own name. And so I think when you're hiring, if you're looking to grow a team, the first person should be an assistant to you. Because you can, I always say that you can kind of like organically do 25-ish deals a year as an individual producer. Maybe you're 30 or whatever before stuff starts slipping through the cracks or you start losing time, because if you're doing 25 a year, that's 2 a month. You probably have 2 more that you're showing property to on another listing that you're holding. Like your Saturdays are gone at that point, and you have new leads coming in that are slipping through the cracks because you're too busy. Really, the first hire should probably be an admin to get you, and that can take you from like 25 to 40, give or take, because it just helps you take off some stuff. At that point, you should start looking at bringing in agents. And when you start to bring in agents, if you just bring people in who want to be like you, which is most of the time how organically teams grow, is someone sees you and they want to get on your team because they want to be like you, well, then their skill set's probably similar to yours. So what you end up doing is you start giving them a bunch of your leads or your business, but then your business drops to fill them up, and then they get really good and they leave. And so like it's tough because like what you should try to do is build assets and team members that support you to do your business. You know what I mean? As opposed to just people who want to be like you and then give away a bunch of your business. And so I think about your team structure a lot when you're thinking about starting a team, or don't start a team.
But it's just the learning of being a business owner.
There's intangibles to having a team too. Let's be real. Like if when I go on a marketing appointment, if I'm able to say I have a team and we collectively did 70 deals this year or whatever, you know what I mean? Versus just me and I have 25 deals. There's cloud to it, or there's some intangible to it. So I get why you would maybe want to have a team even before you're ready to have a team. But.
So like you're talking about like one, you kind of see yourself, okay, we have to build it a certain way for the flex account, et cetera. Like what are the pieces that you're putting in place in your business now for how you want to build it?
Yeah, we have our team, our admin now. And so basically her and I work hand in hand on every deal that she's closing for the team. And then we have what the next role is basically to take one of my team members who's more seasoned and make him kind of a quasi director of ops. And so one of the things that Flex looks for, and so like I assume that that's what a good team is having somebody who's overseeing the production of the leads that come in. And it's like, so that I'm not doing it too. Cause like, if we generate 70 to 100 leads a month, it's like, I can't follow up on every single lead every single time, you know what I mean? But the agents, we do need some sort of process in place to show Zillow or show the other people that we do have the leads being followed up on. So there's probably the next role would be to have some sort of director of ops to kind of oversee the production of the team. And then anything that falls under that, like, hey, how come these leads aren't being called in time? What can we do to help support you? Do you need script practice? Would fall under the director of ops, who would be able to set appointments with each of the team members, do one-on-ones, and find out what's working, what's not, that type of stuff.
Okay. So the next piece is kind of like director of ops.
Yeah, it's kind of interesting because like I was talking to this coach and he was like, why aren't you growing? I'm at 6. I was at 5, 6 people for the longest time. And I was like, I just don't know if I want to go, to have this big team of 30. He's like, but you're in the no man's land. The jump from 1 to 2 is the biggest jump. It's like you've gone from solo to now a team. From that point, you can really go up to like 10 or 12 before you need like a salaried position or like a director of ops or something. Mm-hmm. You can piece in a marketing support or like a TC support or something. But so he's like, at your point, you already have the Slack channel, you already do the team meetings every week, you already have the lead flow, and you already have the kind of accountability with your team and stuff like that. You might as well go to 10. He's like, if you're stuck at 5, you're not maximizing, because you can make money off 5 more people, help them grow their business. You already have all the infrastructure of a team. What's the point of staying at 5? You might as well you either go back to 1 or you go up to 10 or 12. And he's like, I'm not saying you need to go to 30, and like, because that would mean full-time marketing, full-time director of ops, full-time, you know what I mean? He's like, that's a whole different ballgame. But he's like, at 5, you're kind of in this no man's land where you're doing all the stuff of a 10-person team, but you're only getting the money off a 5-person team. And I'm like, it's a valid point. So now I've started to add a couple people in. And by the end of this year, we'll probably sniff the 10-person team and then some sort of maybe additional marketing support. I work with Curator. So like, obviously, between Curator and listing leads, we get a lot of the marketing stuff kind of done easily. Yeah. And Coffee and contracts too. And so like, with that type of stuff, it's like that's probably the last person I'll hire out.
And you've always had a videographer, so all those pieces.
Yeah, my assumption is the next move would be take our TC and then have her into some sort of what I consider like a TC plus role, where it's like TC plus admin. So it's like, hey, can you write this counter for me as well, and then schedule an inspection, right? So that's not just TC, it's what we call TC plus, and then layering in some sort of like accountability / director of ops.
You mentioned very briefly, I think it was like 4 things you mentioned, the foundational pieces for a team: meetings, lead flow, accountability. Could you talk to that? Some people have some, but not all those pieces.
Sure. I do think that if, again, you're providing value and like your team's going to analyze the value, and am I getting, so like having some sort of like a stationary team meeting, right? Not only does it get your team together, which is important, face to face, stuff like that, but it gives some sort of accountability to like, hey, your actions are going to be talked about at some point during this week. So like, are you working hard enough? Are you taking these leads hard enough? You know what I mean? And then it puts the accountability on of like, as a team leader, I'm spending thousands of dollars on online leads, and like I need to know what's happening to those leads. During the team meeting, we usually either bring in a guest or we talk about some macro stuff, rates changed, car forms, role plays. Ultimately, so you're getting everybody together, you're staying top of whatever the changes are, and then you have some sort of accountability with the lead flow that comes in. And then from there, you need to provide some sort of like systemized systems in place, right? They're looking to you as a team leader to provide something. So whether it be lead flow, your CRM, your Real Scout, or your property search, stuff like that, the systems that they need to do the tools they need to do their job. We actually use Google Spaces is what we use, so that anytime a question comes up, they can ask the team, or they can get me on there to respond and be like, hey, don't do that, do this, right? And like, don't spend money here, do this. And so like having that type of community within the team, we do happy hours and stuff like that too, just to make sure it's not just all work. But now we've created a team where someone would want to come hang their license and work.
It's kind of like a revolving cycle. It's like you have the different lead sources. Yep. You have the meetings that keep it accountable, but then you also have the systems that are like, I can hold people accountable with systems.
Yeah, I can't. Without a CRM, I wouldn't know how many leads came in and what was done with them. You know what I mean? I'd be taking their word for it. But like with the CRM, I can see how many times they called, texted, and emailed that person. So it's a lot easier to have the accountability meeting with the CRM.
I think this all kind of ties into something that you've been exceptionally good at throughout your entire career. It goes into like how you and why you move fast into things and execute. It's like you've always been around and circled yourself around other people. Like you had Curator, Compass, BAM, Real, like that's just something that you naturally do. Yeah. And I think that's played a big role, is having that network.
Definitely. I always say like bet the jockey, not the horse. And so like when I see people like a Jimmy Mack and Chris Smith, to me, that are just like Mount Rushmore type industry thought leaders. For me, the brokerage partner, when I moved from my indie brokerage to Compass, that was a great brokerage partner for me. And then when I moved from Compass to Real, it was impeccable. Like I had gone to Real in 2018, I might not have had the growth into my business that I needed, you know what I mean? But then once I picked up that skill set, I was able to take that to Real, where the fees were dramatically less, and I was able to build maybe more of an entrepreneurial network of what I'm trying to build. And so like, but each part played their role. Yeah. And if I had gone to the wrong spot, I could have derailed my whole career, you know what I mean? And so you're absolutely right. The people you surround yourself with, if you're listening to the wrong people, if you get the wrong coach, if you go to the wrong brokerage, it could completely derail. If what we talked about in the very beginning of this podcast, if I had gotten onto a team that did cold calling or ISA work, I would have never made it through my first 2 years. But I got into video marketing, direct, or you know what I mean? I built my business this way, and now I've made it to this point. And so it's wildly important. Yeah, I think it's probably the most important thing outside of your own work ethic that is going to dictate your career.
I know you mentioned Jimmy and Tron, like any non-traditional follows for you, people that like, these are just like very deep, like Twitter follows, Instagram, like podcast, book, anything?
No, Kendra Hall is an author and keynote speaker and her whole entire craft is storytelling. As a non-real estate specialist, I guess you would say, in storytelling, because I feel like the storytelling has been seeped in and crafted a lot of my career, like in the way I write captions and the way I decide how to do listing videos. So Kendra's had a really big push on me, or like a influence in my career. Outside of that, I just try to stay pretty dialed into the macro of the real estate space. So like now BAM with the news, Byron Lazine, and how he kind of breaks down the news stories. You could say the Inman news, right? That type of world where Housing Wire, where it's like, why is the Fed chair going to meet with Compass and NAR, right? It's like, well, I want to know why pieces on the chessboard are moving. I think it helps me as an individual team leader, or, you know, it is important to know what's happening in the industry. So I think those two things kind of guide what I would say make up what I've kind of crafted out as a brand.
And you've always like thought of yourself as like you have to be a media first company that sells real estate. So
yeah, for sure. Crush It. First Gary Vee book I ever read was like 2013 or 14. Crush It. Book is so dated now. It's like talks about like Tumblr and stuff, but like in there, it has the line of you need to think of yourself not as a real estate agent, but a media company who sells real estate. I should put it on my wall in the office because it's like if you do, that's kind of how I've led with my career is like, yes, I'm a real estate agent. I have the skills of a real estate agent, but I'm a media company first. I present all of my real estate stuff via video onto social for my sphere to follow. And then the real estate stuff comes from that.
And now you're doing it within San Diego and the YouTube.
I see it as like a different channel. You know what I mean? So it's like a different, it's almost like if you have a TV and you have like HBO, you have ABC, you have ESPN. Those are different channels which provide different content. That channel is just a different content channel. You know what I mean? So me as like all of the social media is like the new thing, but it's then you have like Jason Cassity Instagram is maybe one channel, and then in San Diego is another channel. And like different people, you may watch Bravo and I might watch ESPN. There's just different content that we partake, but it's all hosted on the same TV, but it's like, it's different channels for different people.
So if people want more of you, where should they go?
Follow social, probably the best way to do it. You know what I mean? Obviously you can find my cell phone number and my email anywhere too, but yeah, if you just go to Jason Cassity on Instagram, it's probably the best way to find me. It's always me, unless there's the team account, which is run by all of my team members, but then anything that says my name on it is me. Those are my thumbs.
Nice.
Yeah.
So yeah, give you a follow. Great. You put out great content.
Thanks. Appreciate it.
So one thing I want to ask about is if you look at any business owner, any entrepreneur, like I know with Instagram, et cetera, it's always easy to see like the positive. And you look at, and it's the highlight reel. But anyone who's built a business for a decade knows it's not always highs, it's not always a straight shot up.
No, for sure.
So can you talk about maybe one of your tough moments that was like pivotal and then kind of changed?
Yeah, I mean, obviously in this business, you always lose listings. And like I have this bit on social where I would say post your L's, where it's like if I have an email that's like, hey, we decided to go with a different agent, I'll screenshot it and post it, block out the name. Not everybody wins every single time. Michael Jordan's quote where he's like, I've missed 715 shots and 32 game winner. You know what I mean? It's like, you don't make it every time. So be open, and that's great content, to be honest. Like if you're admitting that you don't win every time. We had this building in San Diego in Bankers Hill. It was a new construction. There was 41 homes. There was 15 homes left when we took over the project. So the new sales department did 26 of them. We took over the remaining 15. They range from $1 million to $5 million. And we took over. It was amazing. We put in we did this video. It cost $10,000. It was like this listing video. It was so beautiful. And it was me and this other agent. We co-listed it. And we're like, dude, this is amazing. We're going to sell this thing. And this was like December 2019. We did this whole thing. January 2020 hits. We're hitting stride. We have like 7 offers, 5 in contract, 2 more offers we're negotiating. And it's like March 2020. And so we had all this geared up. We're like, dude, we're going to crush this building. This is going to put us on the map. And then COVID hits. And it was like, I think 6 of those 7 deals canceled the escrow or withdrew their offer. Because it was like, we're in downtown San Diego, it's Bankers Hill, which is right outside of downtown. Like nobody, basically for all of 2020, nobody wanted to live in condos. Nobody wanted to live in downtown. We couldn't even show property for 6 months because of like the peds and the face masks. Like the building didn't want us like doing showings, bringing strangers in. And so basically by the end of 2020, we were let go of the project. We had sold 5 of them, I think is what it was. So we picked back up toward the end of the year. That ate me up for like a year. I know we did everything right, and it was like a bad draw because selling condos in downtown San Diego during COVID was just not the easiest thing. But it was like, what could we have done better? Like, where did we drop the ball? And so I dwelled on that for such a long time. Came to the conclusion that like, dude, I think that was just a raw hand, and sometimes that is actually the answer. Sometimes you just get a raw hand. I definitely like had missed. Someone bought with me and then didn't list with me because I didn't follow up enough. You know what I mean? And so that's where it comes back into the systems and processes. Like, I don't want to miss any more business because of that. I want to make sure that all of my clients are getting one-on-ones from me all the time. And so if anything, you take those lessons and you kind of learn and you implement them.
And it shows because now you're doing one-on-ones.
Trying. Exactly.